Bonjour mes amis, je m'appelle Tito, je fais des vidéos sur les finances personnelles sur mon autre chaîne, mais sur cette chaîne, je parle d'autres choses comme aujourd'hui, où je vais revoir la série Netflix, Anikulapo Rise of the Spectre. Now, first of all, this review will contain spoilers because Anikulapo Rise of the Spectre is on Netflix, so you can watch it like right now. Please go and do that unless you don't mind a whole bunch of spoilers. I've been really looking forward to this series. I thoroughly enjoyed Anikulapo the movie in 2022. You can check out my review of it, by clicking the card in the corner. But yeah, like I said, I was looking forward to this series, and it would have been very hard for this series to have disappointed me, right? I'm not fond of reviewing series, if I'm being honest, because there are just so many details and so much to talk about in a series, and I'm a very detailed person. I like to, cover all the bases. So when I find that I have to review a series, there's just so much research that has to be done and so much that I have to talk about, and the reviews end up being really long, and I anticipate this review is going to be really long. I apologize in advance. I also apologize for butchering some of the names of the actors and the characters in this series. Me pronouncing Yoruba names, it's not the best. It can be a bit of, a challenge, particularly for you watching. So I apologize in advance. What else do I want to say? I think that's about it. I think we can start now and dive into the performances in Anikulapo Rise of the Spectre. Now, there are lots of amazing actors and actresses in this series. I can't talk about them all, so I will only highlight 4 actors and 4 actresses and maybe do some notable mentions at the end. Kunle Remi reprises his role as Saro in this series, this wanderer who is also a con man, and in this one he's settled in Ilu-Oyo, and he becomes a palm wine tapper, sells palm wine, does really well. But before that happens though, at the beginning of the series, he finds that he can't cross over to the afterlife because of all the souls that he brought back to life in the movie. So he's sent back to the world to kill those people so that they can cross over, and so can he. But somewhere along the line, as you guys know because you've seen the series, he tries to cheat death once again, and he settles in Ilu-Oyo where he meets Torera. And in the series, it's a different Saro from the Saro we see in the movie. In the movie, Saro has, better times, and he enjoys life a lot more in the movie, to be honest. But in this one, Saro, he gets on his feet for a little bit, but for the majority of the series, I think he's on tough times and he's at a loss, thinking about how he can cheat death and how he has these 3 ghosts that are following him all over the place and trying to get him to die so that they can cross over and he can cross over as well. The acting from Kunle Remi in this one was quite good. To be honest, we didn't see as much from him as I thought we would. I honestly thought the series would be very heavily dependent on Saro, but it wasn't like that. And it's understandable because they're trying to expand on this whole Anikulapo thing and, introduce so many new things and have several seasons after this current season. So it's understandable that they didn't focus that much on Saro. Nonetheless, Kunle Remi did a good job. The range of his emotions in this one wasn't that broad. We see him just perplexed when he's brought back to life or when he dies. We see him trying to get back on his feet and, falling in love with Torera. We also see him in fear and anguish when he's captured and by Bashorun and all that. So there really wasn't that much we see in terms of the acting from Kunle Remi in this one, but nonetheless, the limited portion that we did see was good, but in my opinion, not as good as the movie. Moving on to Bashorun Ogunjimi, played by Owobo Ogunde, the son of the legendary, there was no Nollywood back then per se, but son of the legendary Chief Herbert Ogunde, who was a playwright and an actor, and I think he passed away in 1990. His son, Owobo Ogunde, plays this character, Bashorun Ogunjimi, a tyrant, and honestly, a fantastic antagonist. I think one of the best villains we'll probably see in this year, 2024, in a series or a movie out of Nollywood. Bashorun was something else. He was worth being scared of. As for us, the viewers at home, watching this guy, it felt like we couldn't anticipate his next move. We knew how driven he was. We knew how crafty and cunning he was. We knew how he was just willing to go to any lengths to get what he wanted, which ultimately was to become the ruler of Ilu-Oyo. But there are just so many moving pieces with Bashorun. For example, there's the issue of him having this grand plan of unseating the king. There's also the issue of his relationship with Awarun, played by Sola Sobowale. He loves her. They're in a very loving romantic relationship up until things go sideways when he realizes that she's connected to Saro, who he's searching for. And then there's the dynamic between himself and his son, played by Lateef Adedimeji. So there are just these different parts of Bashorun, and he navigates and weaves through each of them masterfully. And I really, really enjoyed his performance. I think most people did. The funny thing is, at the premiere, which I attended, Bashorun wasn't in episode 1, but that's what they showed us at the premiere, episode 1. But they show us clips of the following episodes, the remaining 5 episodes, of which Bashorun appeared in many of them. And just from those short clips, we were all impressed with what we saw from Bashorun, from Owobo playing Bashorun. Not to mention when we all actually sat down eventually when the series came out on Friday, the 1st of March, and we saw Bashorun in his full element, in this series. Owobo Ogunde, I can't wait to see him in other things. He was brilliant. He was born for this role, and I don't think anyone could have done a better job than Owobo Ogunde playing Bashorun Ogunjimi. More about that character further on in this review. Hey guys, I'm interrupting this video briefly to ask a small favor. Please like the video by clicking on the like button and subscribe to the channel as well by clicking on the black subscribe button. Those things really do matter. Feel free to share the video as well. And if an advert plays soon after this, please watch it, because that's how I make money from YouTube, all right? Thanks, and let's get back to the video. Now let me talk about Taiwo Hassan, who plays Kabiyesi, or as he's titled in the end credits, Alaafin Ademuyiwa, who is the Kabiyesi of Ilu-Oyo. Really great job I didn't pay that much attention to him in the movie, but I paid a lot of attention to him in the series because naturally he had more scenes, he had more dialogue, he had a more prominent role, and Taiwo Hassan did a fantastic job. I shook his hand at the premiere, by the way. I was talking to an actor and he was coming by and they greeted each other, and as before he left, he shook my hand. But anyway, coming back to Taiwo Hassan's performance, Kabiyesi is charismatic. He's also trying to keep the peace. He's also trying to keep the faith in his council and the people of Ilu-Oyo, but he's not the most upright individual, He's trying to please his people, but more so he's trying to please himself. And this is evident with his secret affair with Arolake, because the Ifa is telling him that, look, there's trouble in the land because of what Arolake did. We need to find Arolake and sacrifice her. And he's not really down with that. Arolake actually, of her own volition, comes back to him. And rather than thinking of the greater good of his people and doing what the Ifa says in terms of sacrificing Arolake, he just chooses to have an affair with the beautiful former Olori, So there are lots of things about Kabiyesi. He portrays or pretends like he knows, like he's in control of the situation, but far from it, he's not. He doesn't know the half of what's going on in his kingdom. Not to mention the fact that Bashorun, who is so close to him and a member of his council, is actively planning to unseat him. He seemed very clueless about it, even though he didn't entirely trust Bashorun. So there are so many things going on with that character, and Taiwo Hassan did a fantastic job portraying the character, and I even look forward to seeing what's going to happen with Alaafin Ademuyiwa in subsequent seasons of Anikulapo. And trust me, there are going to be subsequent seasons, because Kunle Afolayan said it at the premiere that they're going to do maybe even up to season 7 of this whole series. Now, finally, from the men, right? Let me talk about Gabriel Afolayan as Akin. I don't think there was anything really unique about Akin, but I did see his role in the film as being very dependent on Bimbo Ademoye's character, Arolake. He was really just supporting that character and helping her manifest her goals and her dreams and find her purpose in the series. And that's fair. Perhaps in subsequent seasons, we'll get to know a bit more about Akin. He really was a supporting character, and I think he did that well. And it was interesting to see his dynamic of this man who likes this woman, he favors this woman, tries to help her. She now becomes exceedingly wealthy and well-to-do, and she actually brings him along and makes him wealthy as well. And he now is in love with her, but she refuses to get married to him. She has an affair with him, they're in a relationship, but she chooses not to marry him. And in the midst of all this, she concocts a plan to return to the king's palace to become an Olori, and he's actively a part of that. And you can imagine how tough that must have been for him, or that was for him, seeing that he was in love with this said woman. So, I mean, good performance from Gabriel Afolayan, but I'm not sure I saw anything particularly unique about the character. I look forward to seeing what they will do with the character in subsequent seasons of Anikulapo. Now for the actresses, Bimbo Ademoye reprises her role as Arolake, and in the series, she's a different woman. She's scarred by what Saro did to her in the movie, and she's wandering in the forest looking for a new place to settle down in, and she's just so dejected, she's at a loss, and she's going through it, right? But in the forest, she meets this family, and she follows them to their town, and she settles there. But while in the forest, she has a dream, and in that dream, she's given this magic pouch with unending funds. So lucky her, she settles in this new town and eventually becomes very prosperous. And, you know, a member of the family that she met in the forest, Akin, played by Gabriel Afolayan, he takes an interest in her. And, you know, as she prospers, she kind of carries him along, right? Now, the performance, Bimbo Ademoye's performance was good. I didn't enjoy it as much as I did in the movie, for the simple fact that in the movie, Arolake had a more prominent role, and there was just a lot more going on between her and Saro in the movie. But in this series, they share a lot of screen time with so many other characters. And I think that they're also trying to build many other characters, and as a result, we don't get so much from Saro and Arolake. So basically, in the series, Arolake is a scarred woman, like I said, and she's quite pensive and introspective. She's very cautious about life and men now, seeing what happened between her and Saro. And Bimbo does a really good job of portraying this calmer, somewhat smarter version of Arolake. The performance was great. It was really good, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed some of the other performances in the series. But that takes nothing away from Bimbo Ademoye, who is a fantastic actress. In fact, one of my favorite scenes in the series featured Arolake, and I'll talk about that a little later. Now, moving on to Sola Sobowale's character, Awarun. This woman, this heck of a woman who is she's not an industrialist, she's just quite industrious. She's a businesswoman, and she's also probably a fantastic woman in the bedroom, because any man that ended up with Awarun on the series apparently was very taken by her and wanted to marry her by all means. I mean, in the movie, Saro wanted to marry her despite the age difference, and in the series, Bashorun as well really wanted to marry her. I mean, there's just something about Awarun, and I remember thinking while watching that, look, I think Awarun needs to have a side hustle of doing like relationship coaching and teaching women how to secure men and how to make men fall madly in love with them, because wow. Anyway, Awarun in the series, personally, I enjoyed Awarun a lot more in the series than in the movie. I guess because there was more for her to do, there was more conflict with the character, and it was quite rich. It was a very rich character, and the situations that Awarun found herself in the series were very interesting. You know, she found herself between a rock and a hard place, trying to defend her daughter from Bashorun, her lover, you know, because her daughter knew about Saro, and Bashorun was clearly trying to hunt Saro down. So that conflict between her daughter, who was quite strong-willed and stubborn, and Bashorun, who is just this tyrant who is willing to just cut down anyone that stands in his way, I really loved that. I really loved seeing Awarun in the middle of all of it, and how she tried her best to defend her daughter. Fantastic performance from Sola Sobowale once again. And I have to say, Sola Sobowale is one of the best things out of Nollywood, or the best things about Nollywood, because time and again, she delivers amazing performances. Yes, the performances or the characters tend to be a bit similar. I mean, that's a complaint many people have about Sola Sobowale's acting or the characters she plays. She can be a bit typecast once in a while, but regardless, she brings something different to each character and she plays each character really well. The last time I saw her in a movie was in Ada Omodadi back in December, and I really enjoyed her in that. There was a scene that she shares with Omomi Dada's character, and that scene was so memorable, and it reminded me of a scene that Awarun and Ola Torreira, who are mother and daughter, share in this series, Anikulapo. So my point is, time and again, Sola Sobowale delivers amazing performances, regardless of what you think about the character she plays or the performances themselves. She does amazingly, if you ask me, and I think she's one of the best things out of Nollywood, full stop. In fact, I go as far as saying that Sola Sobowale may very well be the Meryl Streep of Nollywood. I have, with that one statement, pissed off a whole lot of people. But moving on, the character Ola Torreira, played by Oyindamola Sanni, really good. I've never seen her before. Well, I haven't taken note of her before, but she did really, really well in this series, Anikulapo. I thoroughly enjoyed the character. This very stubborn girl who has the guts to abandon her father to go and marry this young man who was her father's competitor. You abandon family for somebody who is clearly against your family, and you even go as far as marrying the person. Very stubborn girl, but also quite loyal to Saro at the end of the day, surprisingly. I thought she would turn her back on Saro at some point. She didn't. But the delivery of that character by Oyindamola was really, really good. And especially her dynamic with her mother, played by Sola Sobowale. I mean, it was just so powerful when she goes to go and see her mom while pregnant, and it's unraveled or uncovered that that Saro was once in Ilu-Oyo and her mother knew Saro, and it was just so messy, but both women delivered that mother-daughter dynamic, that complicated mother-daughter dynamic really, really well, and I look forward to seeing Oyindamola Sanni in so many other things. Finally, from the women, let's talk about Eyiyemi Afolayan, who plays Princess Omomi. Another character that I enjoyed a bit more in the series than I did in the movie, probably for the fact that she had more scenes and more development in the series. The delivery, right, it was sufficient because she's a princess, she's a bit arrogant, she carries herself a certain way, but we saw a little more from Eyiyemi Afolayan in this one. To be honest, I look forward to seeing where her career goes because she has a good start. She's from a very prominent filmmaking family, and she has the looks too, and she has age on her side. And with the guidance of her family and her father, she could do really big things going forward, not just in Nollywood, but outside of Nollywood. Now for some honorable mentions, there were some Nollywood heavyweights in this series as well. You had Jide Kosoko as one of the council chiefs, so was Adebayo Salami. Fun fact, up until the premiere recently, I thought Adebayo Salami was Femi Adebayo's brother. He's actually his father. Anyway, Lateef Adedimeji was also in this series. His character was the son of Bashorun. And real quick, Lateef Adedimeji did a really good job. And I mean, Lateef Adedimeji is a great actor. However, I found myself wishing that they had cast a younger actor to play that character because Lateef Adedimeji looked older. I don't know how much, they wanted to try and convince us with makeup or whatever that these two grew up together or were childhood friends, but it wasn't really gelling. He looked so much older than Eyiyemi Afolayan's character, Princess Omomi. So I wished that they had cast someone younger, maybe like a Toby Makinde or a Tomiwa Tegbe, to play that character who would look more within the age bracket of Princess Omomi. But aside from that, Lateef Adedimeji, he knocked it out of the park. He did a really good job. And the only reason or the main reason why I will still accept, his performance was because of the dynamic between himself and Owobo Ogunde's character, who played his father, Bashorun Ogunjimi. The dynamic between, the father and son, the tension and the rivalry between them, fantastic. I don't know if we would have gotten tension that good if they had cast someone else instead of Lateef Adedimeji. Moving swiftly on, shout out Layi Wasabi, who played one of the ghosts in this series. That was really good. He was really good in that, rather. Moji Afolayan playing one of the Oloris and the mother of Princess Omomi. She was really good. Aisha Lawal playing Olori Sukomi. She was really good as well. Who else was in this? Titi Kuti as Adigun. Some people had, issues with Titi Kuti's performance. They weren't really feeling it, but for me, it was sufficient. And I'm always happy to see Titi Kuti because we don't see him that much or in that many Nollywood productions. I think because he's based outside of Nigeria. So I was happy to see him, and I think he delivered well with that character. Sadly, the day that Anikulapo Rise of the Spectre came out, March 1st, news broke of the passing of Sisi Quadri, a fantastic actor and comedian. May he rest in peace. He did really well in the series. And at the premiere, we were also told that another actor who was in the series had passed away, Aderemi Olofayino, who played one of the council chiefs. He had passed away as well. So rest in peace to both fantastic actors. May their memories continue to live on. Ce que j'ai aimé. There was so much to like about this series, to be honest. First of all, the cinematography. Kunle Afolayan is one of my favorite Nollywood filmmakers. He's a very detailed filmmaker. I love his camera work in many of his movies. And the cinematography in this was really impressive. Also, the VFX were really good. You guys may not know, but there was more VFX in this series than you actually know, right? For example, the establishment scenes, all those wide shots where they'd show the town and you'd see the hills and the valleys in the background. Many of those things were VFX. They were digitally added to those scenes, right? And they looked so convincing and so real. The world building was also very impressive. You see, they're trying to build on this thing, and they're building on the movie into a series, and as such, they're incorporating new characters, new environments, new storylines, and they're just building up on what's existing, and I think they're doing that well. For example, in this season, they added the town of Ede and the people of Ede, and Kuranga and his people and so many other things, right? They're just building on things quite well. It's not overwhelming, yeah, and I look forward to how they continue to do that in subsequent seasons. I think they're going like the Game of Thrones route with the world building. The set pieces and set design, the sets were really good. They were aesthetically pleasing, yes, but more so, they were very functional. As the characters were moving in certain scenes, I was seeing how it was working in the favor of the cameras and the scenes and the dialogue, most especially. The costuming was really good. Kunle Afolayan is into fashion. I think he has a clothing line as well, and he has an eye for fashion and detail when it comes to fashion. So even down to the extras in this series, they were all appropriately dressed. I loved the colors, the tie and dye, and all those things that they were wearing. Bashorun's outfit and that dodgy looking staff that he carried that kind of looked like a sex toy. The accessories and the details and Kabiesi, everyone looked really good in their various costumes. The dialogue was also really good. Naturally, with a Yoruba epic, the adages and the proverbs and all that, and the pauses, the emphasis, and the gestures and everything. Really loved the dialogue in this series. The plot twists, wow. The plot twists were epic in this series, especially finding out that Ola Torera was Awarun's daughter, because these are two women who have been intimate with Saro. So finding out that Saro has at one point been in a relationship with both women was quite jarring and surprising. The sound design in this series was amazing. From hearing the cocks crowing, the chickens in the back, the horses making that sound. Is it neighing? The sound design was really, really good. And once again, shout out to Kunle Afolayan and his attention to detail, because the sound design in this series, I think, is a product of Kunle Afolayan's attention to detail. And finally, the final act, or sorry, not the final act, but the final scene of the series where the three women that Saro loved deeply sitting on a bench in front of, his house, i.e. Awaru, Torera, and Rolake, as Rolake carries the baby. That was a moving final scene. It was quite apt, and as the camera just pans from down towards the sky, it was quite moving seeing these three women who I think know that they're at one point they were all special women in Saro's life, just sitting there pensive and just reflecting on everything that had happened in recent years. I think that was a very powerful final scene. Ce que je n'ai pas aimé. See, the rain VFX in one of those scenes where it was raining, it didn't look too fantastic, if I'm being honest. The tacky blood splatter when Bashorun Ogunjimi is killed, the blood splatter, it looked very old school. It looked unnecessary. What would have been better would have been if, his garment or his outfit was being soaked more and more with blood, rather than the blood just splattering the way it was. It looked tacky, if I'm being honest. Also, this series left me with lots of unanswered questions. Yeah, for one, the amulet that Saro was given by the angel or whatever in episode 1, what did that amulet do? What was the purpose of that amulet? Was it what he was using to kill people? Was it what he was using to roam around, on the earth? And there are just questions about that amulet. In addition, Kuranga and Princess Omomi, they get married. Why did they try and consummate their marriage in Ilu-Oyo? Because naturally, especially given the kind of powerful person that they wanted us to believe Kuranga was, you'd imagine that after the wedding, he takes his wife and they head back to Ede, and there he tries to consummate their marriage and everything. But naturally, because of what's needed to happen in the series, they do it or they attempt to do it in Ilu-Oyo, and you know how that turns out. But I mean, I don't see why he didn't immediately after the wedding carry his bride to his palace in Ede. Also, the timing of Kuranga's men when they show up and they cause havoc just before Arolake is meant to be executed, that was very convenient timing. Because had they shown up maybe 10 minutes later, Arolake would have died and everything. It seemed, why show up there and then, okay? In addition, or in connection to that, Aki apparently partners or becomes friends with Awolaran, which is Bashorun's son, right? As is revealed later on. My point is, what was their plan to save Arolake if Kuranga's men or the men from Ede didn't come and disrupt the execution? So that was a bit sketchy and a bit open-ended, yeah? And another thing, the spirits or the ghosts, why were they helping Saro? Because Saro was delaying them crossing over into the afterlife. Why help the person who killed you to stay on earth longer and in effect delay your own crossing over or transition to glory? So yes, there are just a number of questionable things that happened in the series, and I think things that could have been handled a bit better. The abduction of Princess Omomi at the end. Oh, do you know, and I think this is kind of why, another thing which I didn't like about this series was the somewhat underwhelming ending of the series. It didn't fall flat, but I felt like it could have ended on a much higher, more intriguing note. For example, coming back to the Omomi thing, when they abduct Princess Omomi, it would have been more interesting if there was a figure there, maybe like Kuranga's brother or father, somebody very close to Kuranga, who is now the one who is going to take vengeance on or for Kuranga's death. If he led the charge or led the movement to go and abduct Princess Omomi, or if we even just saw that character at some point towards the end, so that we know that, okay, this is the person who is going to, get vengeance, and this is probably going to be the villain in the next season of Anikulapo. But there was no such individual. So as a result, there wasn't that anticipation that you tend to feel when series like this end. Because of that, and also, yes, not being told or shown how Saro ultimately dies is another reason why this series was a bit underwhelming. Because this whole thing begins with Saro coming back to life, trying to cheat death, and wondering if he's going to fulfill his assignment and cross over to the afterlife. So him not accomplishing that assignment, we all now want to see what becomes of this guy. Is he going to be one of those statues on the path to the afterlife, or is he going to wander the earth aimlessly as the undead? What exactly happened to Saro's character, right? Or to Saro, rather. Now, obviously, they don't show us so that they have the opportunity to maybe bring him back at some point. I suspect that's it. But at the same time, something more satisfying could have been done to give us a bit of closure with Saro, because we get on this whole journey and we watch this series largely to know what happened to Saro, but we don't get to see that. What we do get is him appearing in Arolake's dream and sending Arolake on a silly errand to go and take care of his wife and his child. I felt that was quite insulting. Now, real quickly, I want to talk about some of my favorite scenes from the series. The first of which was the opening scene in the series where Saro stands on that pathway. He looks left, he looks right, and at first they're empty. Then he looks again, and all of a sudden there are people on the path, and then he joins the queue as they all head to the gate to the afterlife. That was very powerful. That was a very stimulating and interesting opening scene. The next scene in the entire series that was one of my favorites was when Awarun learns from Bashorun that Saro is indeed alive and he's searching for him. That was a very powerful scene. That scene went from 0 to 100 in a very short time. Sola Sobowale's performance or delivery in that scene, with her physical acting and her emotions when she realizes that the plot has thickened because Saro is still alive, one, and he's the husband to her daughter, and Bashorun is also hunting him down. So that was a very tense and very powerful scene. My third favorite scene was when Awarun was defending, or when she defended her daughter Torera, when Bashorun shows up in town looking for Saro. The way they even executed that scene was really good, because you see Torera sitting outside, Bashorun challenges her, and then Torera screams out for her mother, and her mother runs from outside to confront Bashorun. Very powerful, and you just saw the love that the mother had for the daughter, and how she was willing to go to the ends of the earth to make sure that no harm came to her daughter Torera. I actually shed a tear while watching that scene. It was so powerful. Finally, my favorite scene in the entire season was when Arolake unveiled herself or revealed herself to Kabiyesi. And Kabiyesi, the shock that Kabiyesi must have felt in that moment. And he was about to say her name. He said Aro, and when Arolake covered his mouth, even I was like, hey, keep quiet, old man, keep quiet. Don't cast. It was very shocking and very tense. I was wondering, would Arolake reveal herself to Kabiyesi, or would she draw it out? Would she try and get him to make a promise first before revealing herself? But she ultimately reveals herself. I was stunned. I was on the edge of my seat. But the real powerful part of that scene was when Arolake actually convinces Kabiyesi to not, first of all, to not give her away and not shout her name or call for the guards, but also for him to consider reinstating her into the palace as the Olori and pardoning her. You would think is that Arolake, come on, you're asking for too much. But she did it the right way. Because if you're going to get a Yoruba man or a Nigerian man to do the seemingly impossible, there are a few things you need to do. You beg, you make him feel like your entire life and existence is in his hands. That he's the only one that can redeem you. And you rub him a bit, because she was on her knees and she was rubbing his legs and his thighs and confusing the poor man. But she did everything she needed to do. And even said that everything she has is his. All her wealth and everything she will give to him. So she pressed all the right buttons, and as we know, it worked. And Kabiyesi played along, and it was an interesting game of role play that two of them played for a while before the jig was up. Kabiyesi, the man likes to live on the edge. Can we say we're surprised? Let me not say more than that. Personally, I really enjoyed Anikulapo Rise of the Spectre. Sure, there were hiccups here and there. For example, it just dawned on me that when they told Saro how he could come back into the world of the living, i.e. by burying his corpse and taking the sand from the burial ground and putting it, at the gates or the entry point of the towns that he would go into, that's how he can be amongst the living. If that was the case, what happened when he was abducted by Adigun and taken back to Ilu-Oyo? Because he didn't have the chance to do all that. So how was he able for his physical body to enter that town? So yeah, I mean, there are just question marks here and there about the series, but nonetheless, fantastic series. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Cinematography, great. Storytelling, great. World building, great. I said all these things before, and I'm really looking forward to the next season of it. In conclusion, this series is not everyone's cup of tea. I thought initially that if you loved the movie, you'd love the series. It's not necessarily like that. The series is its own thing. It's its own element. So I won't be surprised if the series garners its own audience, right? And if for some reason you haven't seen the series yet, but you've watched this review, I can't say for sure if you will like the series because you liked the movie. And if you haven't seen the movie either, but you're watching this review, that's a bit, anyway, you know why you clicked on this video. But I personally enjoyed it, and I'm going to give Anikulapo Rise of the Spectre 3.5 over 5 jollofs. 3.5. Yeah, guys, if you enjoyed this review, you'll most likely enjoy the video that I'm ultimately at some point going to make from the premiere. I attended the premiere, and it was quite awesome. I've had so much to do, and this review takes priority over the video of the premiere. So I'm going to edit that eventually. Look out for that. You can check that out by clicking the card in the corner of the screen when it eventually comes out. But in the meantime, in the card in the corner of the screen as well, you can see some of my past reviews. I review Nollywood movies and series on this channel. I recommend checking out my review of Anikulapo the movie from back in 2022. It's in the card in the corner of the screen. And quick shout out to my fellow YouTubers who I was at the premiere with, Halima the Bird and Ronke Sui. They also review shows and series, I think largely from Nollywood. So we were together, at the premiere when we saw episode 1. Shout out to them. And also shout out to Anu, she works at CAP Studios, which is Kunle Afolayan Production Studios. She recognized me, and yeah, so shout out to you, Anu. Thanks for watching, and it was really nice to meet you that evening at the premiere. Am I missing anything? I also have a podcast for those of you who listen to podcasts. My podcast is called the 30-Minute Podcast. I will link it in the description box down below, or also in the card in the corner of the screen. Let me know, guys, what you thought about Anikulapo Rise of the Spectre. What did you like most about it? What questions did you have about it? What are you looking forward to in the next season of this series or this franchise that they're starting? But generally, what did you think about this season? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm really curious to hear what you guys thought about Anikulapo. I haven't gotten as much feedback about the series as I thought I would. I think I'll go on Twitter to see what people are saying now that I'm done with the review. Thank you so much for the final time, guys. Please like this video if you haven't liked it. It's very important. And subscribe to my channel as well by clicking on the black subscribe button. Those things are very important. I hope you've done them, and I'll catch you guys, hopefully, in the next review. Take care.